Greetings, my friend. Now, I know that those of us here at USA Kilts are all fans of Gallic history and culture, but occasionally we also appreciate something a little lighter, something more fanciful, more fun for a quiet evening at home. So, since gift shopping season is upon us yet again, I thought it might be a good time for us to run down the 5 top Scottish and Irish influenced comic books. Just a note before we keep going, I would very much appreciate it if you would subscribe to our channel to get more content like this. Help us defeat the evil algorithm. Thank you. Number 5. The Marvel Universe. To be honest, this first entry is sort of a catch-all, since the Marvel Universe is so muckin' huge and includes some of the most familiar comic books in the world. To their credit, though, Marvel has long made an effort to include characters with backgrounds from all around the world, from the US to Nepal, Canada to Wakanda. How much these characters' backgrounds matter in the scope of the story at hand varies. Honestly, it's often minimal at best. But if you want to seek out some Celtic flair in the MU, you can find it. I mean, look at this list of characters. Massive. The biggest Irish names in Marvel are clearly the mutant Banshee, Sean Cassidy, and his daughter Siren, Teresa Cassidy. The most famously Scottish characters are probably Moira MacTaggart and Rain Sinclair, that's Wolfsbane of the New Mutants. In each case, the hero's heritage is not merely background color, but plays a fundamental part in their personality and their adventures. For instance, Siren was possessed by the Morrigan at one point. And Wolfsbane, my personal fave, has a particularly tragic backstory that offers a salient critique of religion and politics. As a result, her story arc really packs a punch. Now, in most cases, these heroes appear in team stories, sometimes playing a central role, sometimes not. However, occasionally they do have their own titles, so those are things to look for. Some lesser-known characters include Caledonia, Bridget Shane, Ghost Girl, a World War II era hero, and the Klansman, who appeared in The Punisher: Blood on the Moors. Great book. At one point, the X-Men were based out of Muir Island off the coast of Scotland. That was the research facility of Moira MacTaggart, and it's since become a key setting for Marvel titles in general. Marvel also brought us a series called The Union, which includes superheroes representing each country of the UK. For Scotland, they had a superheroine named Kelpie. And yes, if you visit the expanded Spider-Verse, you will meet the Spider-Laird. Honestly, that one kind of hurts my brain a little bit. Number 4. Middenface McNulty. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty, and fair warning, this next title is not for the wee bairns. Any fan of the infamous Judge Dredd franchise should know that its creators, John Wagner and artist Carlos Esquerra of the 2000 AD studio, had a few other titles to their names, each with a dedicated fan base to this day. Most notable is Strontium Dog, and within that world we meet the delightfully cynical badass Archibald Middenface McNulty. McNulty is a regular companion to the Strontium Dog series star, Johnny Alpha, a mutant bounty hunter of a dystopian, radiation-soaked future. McNulty is absolutely a fan fave. He has his own spin-off series, and he pops up in a number of titles on the regular. McNulty's story is set in 22nd century Scotland. In a world warped by radioactive fallout, mutants form the underclass of society. McNulty grew up in a Scottish mutant ghetto called Shite Hill. That's a slam on an actual Edinburgh suburb, by the way, called Sight Hill. McNulty is a seasoned guerrilla fighter who has spent most of his life defending himself and others against fanatical hatred and violence, especially on the part of the authorities. His nickname, Middenface, comes from his signature mutation. His skull is covered in hard, knobby bumps. So yeah, he's basically a hard-headed Scotsman. McNulty first appeared in the book Portrait of a Mutant. Now, early on, there was kind of a running gag about his Scottish dialect being incomprehensible to the rest of his team, but that was thankfully dropped. However, his hooligan-esque behavior is a regular source of dark humor. More importantly, his storylines are often not-so-subtle satires of contemporary Scottish society and politics, and that's the real gold of this character. So check out Portrait of a Mutant or the books Brigadoon and Midnight. These are parodies of the musical Brigadoon and the classic Robert Louis Stevenson novel Kidnapped. Just a sample of the sort of humor we're talking about here. The mystical village of Brigadoon is made up entirely of cannibals, led by none other than the legendary Scottish robber, Sawney Bean. That's right, they threw Sawney Bean in there somehow. And naturally, all the residents tend to break out in song at random. Truly, this is a hellish place for our hero to overcome. Number 3, broth. Okay, how about some good old sword and sorcery? Broth is a series about a Celtic-themed warrior chieftain and his tribe who live on a parallel Earth called Han Jin. Written by Chuck Dixon and penciled by Andrea DeVito, this title was published by the amazing CrossGen Entertainment. The official synopsis goes something like this. On the world of Han Jin, Emperor Quintilius Aurelius Galba Rex rules his vast empire with an iron fist. The lands of the empire stretch from the deserts of Bythium to the cold wastes of Tandar Steppe, each region enslaved by the invincible legions of the empire. Yet one land and one people resist, the clans of the Ure. The great war chief Brath MacGarren has brought these barbarians together in an uneasy alliance. Marked with the sign of the stag god, Brath and his army defy Quintilius's forces time and again, with the pressure ever mounting. Nice. This title is very obviously inspired by Braveheart, Gladiator, and real-life historical events such as the epic clashes between the Gallic chieftain Vercingetorix and Julius Caesar. It's a great romp that hits all the beats we want in an adventure where the underdog wins out over the man. Highly recommend. Sadly, Brath had a short life before CrossGen went bankrupt. However, the series has been collected into 2 trade paperbacks, Hammer of Vengeance and Gladiator Triumphant. Number 2, Saltire, the Immortal Guardian. This is the single most straight-up homage to the spirit of Scotland you will ever find in comics. That's right, this is a superhero who takes his identity from the beloved Saltire flag itself. Based on Caledonian folklore and set within a gritty pseudo-history of Scotland, this epic series is really visionary in depth and scale. Creator John Ferguson blends real history, mythology, and some classic comic book style adventure to bring us something fresh. Saltire himself is an ancient entity created as, quote, the immortal guardian of Scotland, by a cabal of Scottish heroes, both mortal and fey. Aided by the ancestral clan guardians, he fights to defend his people's way of life and their right to freedom. Sounds kind of familiar. To fulfill his purpose, Saltire journeys throughout Scotland as well as into the ethereal world and to the mysterious other world. And from invasions by Romans, tyrannical Saxons, and crazed Viking berserkers, to the convoluted Scottish wars for freedom and the bloody conflict with Cromwell's Puritans, Saltire faces off against the greatest foes of Scotland, not to mention their dark magic and supernatural allies. Before our final entry, honorable mention, Disney's DuckTales. How could we possibly cover this topic without at least mentioning the great Scrooge McDuck and his kinfolk in DuckTales? This title has been around for decades, first appearing in 1947. Now, you may have considered him two-dimensional, an over-the-top caricature of an old rich dude. But I'll have you know that the history of the Clan McDuck is very well documented, even loosely speaking going back to 2000 BC. Many of the DuckTales stories, even going back to the 1940s, have explored Scrooge's Scottish roots. The McDuck clan has a long, rich history in Scotland that dates to its founding in 880 AD by Sir Eider McDuck. Unfortunately, in 946 he was killed during the Anglo-Saxon siege of Macduff Castle. The McDuck clan has many, many members, including main characters, ancestors, and a ton of smaller random ducks thrown in for color or for a gag. The mains are, of course, Scrooge McDuck, Donald Duck, Huey, Dewey, and Louie Duck, Della Duck, Matilda McDuck, and Hortense McDuck. It's fun to ponder how many kids have gotten their first taste of Scottish culture through this colorful and lighthearted title. These books are pretty much a lock if you need a stocking stuffer that you can share with the entire family. Number 1. Slain. Slain is another sword and sorcery adventure series, and this time the story is truly massive. The setting is a fantasy prehistory of the Land of the Young, aka Ireland. Slain is basically a Celtic Conan the Barbarian in the very best possible sense. The title came to us via 2000 AD from writer Pat Mills and was initially drawn by his then-wife, Angela Kincaid. Other notable artists who have worked on the character over many years include Glenn Fabry, Simon Bisley, and Simon Davis. The world of Slain and his adventures are heavily rooted in Celtic myth. The main character is actually based on the mythic hero Cuchulainn. An exile from his tribe, Slain brandishes a mighty axe called Brainbiter. He's possessed of divine power, which allows him to perform a warp spasm in battle. The energy of the earth literally warping through his body, turning him into a terrifying, monstrously powerful berserk. And this is so cool. That power itself was inspired by the Riastad, a body-distorting battle frenzy which is exhibited by the OG Cuchulainn in Celtic mythology. I love that. Slain worships and does the bidding of the goddess Dani, which is an in-world reimagining of Danu, the goddess progenitor of the mythical Tuatha De Danann of Celtic mythology. In the beginning of the series, Slain is an exile and wanderer, getting into trouble with his sidekick, a nasty dwarf named Uko. But in time, he returns to his tribe and is made their king. Slain's adventures quickly mount to an epic level, as it is his divine mission to defend his people from all manner of evil invaders, including the heinous sea demons known as the Fomorians. He even ends up traveling across time and different dimensions in his war against evil. This is truly a wild ride, and I just can't fit it easily into a synopsis for this video, sorry. But you can find the Slain books on Amazon. Do it. Do it right now. So there you go, our top 5 Celtic-inspired comic book titles. Which ones have you read? Tell us in the comments. If you're looking for one to pick up, definitely go to your local comic book shop and place an order today. And if you like, subscribe for more content like this. Excelsior!